Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by 10th Man, Brian's Logic, Neil, Eli, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Greetings, everyone.
Hello.
Anybody in Discord going to say hello?
Hey, good morning.
Hello? Who was that said hello?
With shines, I think.
That was Melby.
Hey, Melby. Hey, Ryan. Hey, whoever else said hello. Good to have you all.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge that's a horizon formerly known as Earth curve?
No. Wasn't Adam saying yesterday that something about Al-Biruni needing to use a flat plane to do his measurement?
To get the height of the mountain, yes.
Yeah.
Correct. So his first, before deriving an R value by way of a dip angle measurement to a physical assumed to be sphere edge horizon known as Earth curve, he had to get the height of the mountain. He does it with basic trig on a flat plane. Absolutely epic. I didn't know that. It came as quite a shock, actually, because you wouldn't think that would be part of the rhetoric, would you? But there it is in plain view. He needs a flat plane to start the whole process of assuming it's a spherical plane.
Yeah, it's good.
Hey, Owen.
Yeah. Hello.
Are we talking about Booby?
Booby, yeah.
Yeah.
Al-Biruni.
They got that traveling version of the tangent plane that folds up. They take it everywhere they need it.
Or anywhere any work needs to actually be done, they just fold out a flat world that they'll actually work on that matches the world that they're actually standing on. Is that what you mean? Tangent plane.
Yeah, exactly. They keep bringing it in every image. It's like, wait a minute, if you're on the sphere, use the sphere. Well, we're not on the sphere. Come on, get with it.
Did I catch the end of that? What, Booby had to assume a flat plane to get the height of the mountain
Correct.
in the first place?
Correct.
And then he went up the mountain to then decipher that the plane, the ground he's going to measure is a plane?
No, he then takes a dip angle measurement, assuming that the horizon is a physical sphere edge that's dipping away from his position, so he can derive an R from that. The calculation between a 90 degree, which would be parallel to the surface he measured the height of the mountain on, gives him his dip.
That he had to get the height of from a flat plane. Wow.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
It's priceless. It's brilliant.
Well, that sucks for you guys again.
It's just embarrassing, really. It really is beyond the point of, you know, I protest that it should be them making the positive assertion because it's the extraordinary claim. But when we discuss things like this, it's like, yeah, even Al-Biruni is deriving your R value that you're all going to assume. He's starting with a flat plane too, isn't he? So it's not unreasonable to say Earth's flat. That is the standard supposition that you will be utilising to actually measure things, or build on things, or navigate around places, or do anything ever, because it is actually flat. There's no way around that. All the presuppositions after the fact won't make any difference to how things are actually done. Flat.
Who's it more embarrassing for?
What was it
that
that
we fell for it.
Both.
What was it?
I'm past that, Neil. I don't care.
What was it that Andrew Thomas Young had to do all his refraction calculations on again?
Flat plane.
What was that? Ah, shit. Oh, that sucks too. It's like him and Booby are in agreement there. Flat plane.
Quick shout out to Brian's Logic. So Brian released a video this morning that's in challenge to Wolfie6020 in regards to certain assertions that he'd made by way of demonstrating how a jet fighter in a little aircraft that's modelled, or a little model aircraft, I should say, physical model aircraft, moving around a spherical surface and how it would have to invert to be on the bottom of a presupposed spherical Earth. Now, Brian's challenged him to produce the thrust data that apparently if this is descending through drop at 8 inches per mile squared, then that will be accountable in the amount of thrust that's had to be removed, the lack thereof, in other words, in the data. Now, as far as I could ascertain in the most recent video, although it's an aside from the point being made in the video, that's something that's not come your way or has not been forthcoming to date. Is that correct, Brian?
Yes, Nick. First of all, thank you for shouting at me in the video. Yeah, it's the thrust and the pitch data, because if he's flying several thousand miles in a commercial aircraft, then to deal with the drop value of a globe out, you would have to constantly pull back on your thrust. So you would have all the thrust data necessary to show that you're dropping this amount. But then to deal with the curvature, because it's not just drop, it's to deal with the curvature, then you're going to have the pitch data to support that. So the thrust and pitch data from any commercial airliner, any commercial flight, I should say, I'm looking for him or any pilot to present it so I can get it corroborated. Because they're claiming to fly around the globe out, which would mean there'd be a thrust data and pitch data there to support this. So that's what I'm looking for. And I've gotten nothing so far. I've gotten insults.
Sure, and a load of conditionals from what I could get from your video today. So I've got it on screen now for those of you who want to actually check this out. I'll just grab the share link and I'll stick it in the live stream chat, which is open to subscribers if you did want to chat. But this is the video. Brian's Logic is the name of the channel. Subscribe today if you've not done so already. If nothing else, go and throw this video a like and maybe encourage Wolfie to give the data that he's been asked for.
Yes, thank you, Nathan, because that data will never turn up, because if it was there, they would have been able to present it 6 years ago. They would be able to show it. They can't show it because it doesn't exist. We're not living on a sphere. So all they can do is, like we discussed earlier, is that they can say to themselves, if I'm on a sphere, then I'm flying around a sphere. We know it's a sphere, so I am flying around a sphere. So it's confirmation bias, isn't it?
Well, it's begging the question. That was the comment I left, actually, because it was on exactly around this point, about half an hour into the video. And I just said, look, it's just begging the question. There you go, I even time-stamped it, 30 minutes and 1 second. That's all it is. Well, obviously I'm remaining level. It's like, hold on, this is level. This line here, why is this line here? Because that's level, that's 0, right? But he's saying, well, this is level, because I've drawn a line under the plane that's going to be changing its angle in the next frame. So that's level. It's like, no. Saying it's level because it's on a sphere, therefore it's on a sphere, is just an affirming the consequent. But you're starting off by saying, well, because it's on a sphere, as per the diagram, that's just a begging the question fallacy, plain and simple.
Yeah, I mean, the basics with this video that I put out 3 others before this, but the basics with this one is about someone proving that they can violate 0 degrees horizontal. Because as I show, as what you're describing there, Nathan, as I show in the video with 2 different scenarios, is that the original 0 degrees horizontal that the pilot would have, he or she would have to throw that out the window and create a whole new different one. Because you're going to have to pitch down. That means, are you then several degrees below your original 0 degrees horizontal, or are you at a whole new different 0 degrees horizontal? You can't have more than 1 0 degrees horizontal. You only have 1 0 degrees. And I even show that Wolfie in not stating it to me, but stating to someone else, supporting this claim, with a comment he made to another pilot on my channel. So you can't have more than 10 degrees horizontal, and to fly around the globe would mean that you'd have to constantly come up with a whole new 0 degrees. You'd have to, which is an impossibility. You can't do that, and that parallel horizontal, and that two horizontal lines can never not be parallel. So, because that's another thing as well. How can they have horizontals that are crisscrossing each other? You can't. Which one is horizontal? You can only have 0 degrees horizontal. The rest of them are degrees above and below that horizontal. Isn't that true?
Well, I've just stuck your types of, has it labelled types of lines in geometry. I've just got that up and paused it on your video and had the video running while you were talking because it just happened to line up beautifully with what you were saying, obviously, as it's the video we're discussing. But yeah, I've got them on screen now. In terms of the main essence of the video, as opposed to getting data in terms of thrust or fuel used or whatever else qualifies what you're asking from Wolfie, you've got these certain parameters. Again, check out Bev's channel. This is something that he harps on about non-stop, right? These principles are never to be violated. Perpendicular lines, parallel lines, horizontal lines, all of these things that are utilised when you're flying a plane, and this is what Brian's pointing out. Not the idea that you've got a movement between different angles, like it's being shown by Dr. Dave or Dr. What's his name?
Professor Dave. He's not a professor, but he calls himself a professor.
Okay.
Professor Dave.
So Dave's showing us that, look, it's all constantly maintaining an altitude, right? But it isn't constantly maintaining the 0 degree horizontal, is it? As it changes, as it moves, as it literally is obvious on screen as he shows it doing it. It's like, what is going through these people's mind when they tell you that something is remaining constant and then they show you a diagram of it changing? I mean, literally, what is going through his mind? Does he not realise that he's animating something changing? I mean, is he that stupid?
Well,
Yes.
yeah. Sorry, Jacqueline.
No, I just said yes. He is that stupid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that as we said earlier in the pre-show, if you're going to fly a plane, let's say you're a pilot, if you're going to think you're on a globe, then you got right. If you're going to honestly investigate your belief, then you're going to have to look at what you're actually doing for that 6-hour flight. That could be a couple of thousand miles or whatever. You're going to have to look at what you're doing. What isn't happening? You're not violating 0 degrees horizontal. Your 0 degrees horizontal is always the same. You're only pitching above it or pitching below it. And if you're flying in a commercial airliner, you're flying with the nose pitched above and the chord line of the wings pitched above 0 degrees because it has to be. So if that's how an airplane has to fly, and that's how they fly for thousands of miles at a time, I think one of the longest flights was from, in a direct straight line, was from Tahiti to Paris. That's one of the longest ones ever, I think. And that meant for that whole time, they flew all that distance with the chord line of the wings and the nose of the airplane several degrees above horizontal. So all they're doing is they're dropping in altitude and rising in they're not holding the same air pressure, but they're dropping and rising to hold it. Because, as I said in the video, there's convection in different parts of the world at different things. If you're crossing the equator, it's going to be different than if you're in Northern Europe. You're going to have a different height above the ground, I would say, because of the air working different there. But in general, that's all they're doing. If you imagine, put your hand out in front of you, tip your fingers up slightly, and bring your hand down a little bit and back up a bit, and down a bit and back up a bit. That's all they're going to be doing, other than going in a straight line.
Right, I'm just going to do a couple of quick shout-outs. So shout out to Godzilla37. New Globe Dictionary, quote-unquote, measurement. Numbers calculated from other numbers pulled from one's own butt. Thank you very much for the super chat, Godzilla37. Also, shout-out to, where's he gone? James Richard. Turn a conveyor belt into a sphere. Walk in the direction it's moving, then walk against it. Any difference? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Thank you very much for the super chat, James Richards. Also, lumpy gas in a vacuum. Again, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, it would be hell of a treadmill if spinning. Right on. Thank you very much, all of you, for the super chats. Really do appreciate the support. Anything else you wanted to add, Brian?
Well, only just that if a pilot is going to be honest with themselves, that they're going to have to, like, if they're going to be honest, they're going to have to say, well, I'm not doing anything that would suggest anything other than I'm flying across a stationary plane. Like, in none of my videos did I point out the whole issue of the Earth supposed to be rotating. I didn't even go into that. So, without even going into this supposed rotating Earth, right, just dealing with the drop in the curvature, it's not there. They have no data for this that they can support and provide. There is no evidence for this. If you're a pilot, there's no evidence for this. You can only believe you're on a sphere. That isn't it with all other things.
I could have sworn I've heard pilots like say they've seen like mountains like 1,000 miles away. Like, how the hell are you doing that? Like, you're flying around the ball.
No,
how does that happen?
But let me just round this out by doing a proper shout out again. So going by in the chat, as you can probably see on screen if you're watching, as opposed to just listening, is a link to this particular video on Brian's Logic's channel. So I'll say it again, this is the channel, Brian's Logic. Subscribe today. At the very least, go and give him a thumbs up on that video. Maybe throw a comment. If you're an anti-flat earther or a globe believer, feel free to justify how changing, in obvious terms, your position when depicted in the way that it is on screen now, how that can anyway be justifiable as staying the same, which is essentially what's being argued. Also, if you can encourage Wolfie6020 to provide some of the data that shouldn't really be justifiably hideable or confidential, I agree with Brian. Okay, well, if you're sinking around to descend around a sphere that you're apparently flying around, then show us the data that backs that. If it is, then great, we'll have a look at it. But if not, why is it not being presented already? So that's it. Brian's Logic channel. Subscribe today.
It's so ass backwards because we've had arguments with Globers who tell us that the pilots assume it's flat. And why do they assume it's flat? Because it's so big. So it's funny to me when other pilots or so-called pilots now want to argue how round it is while still assuming it's flat when they're flying. And when are they taught to fly around the ball? When does that happen?
It doesn't.
Because even the FAA says they assume it's all flat and stationary. NASA says it.
when they became anti-flat earthers.
Is that what it is?
Another shout out to Ben White, who says plane geometry, geometry over a plane. It's just semantics. Right.
Good pun there. Nathan, I got some slides that will correspond to what Brian showed in that first slide you started from his YouTube, his latest video, the plane over the sphere.
Okay.
So there's several slides there, Master B. Go ahead to the first one. I'll wait till it's on screen here on my phone so that I can follow you.
It's the first one with the lighthouse. Very blue.
I believe so.
Okay, got your black and blue one on to begin with.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the screen here. Okay, no, not that one. You gotta, there we go. Okay, so celestial body sextant angle. So here's about off the shore. It wants to know how far he is from the cliffs, the lighthouse. So I'll go to the next slide.
Just assume I'm clicking on happily without me having to say yes each time.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm going to go to my actual slides because it's a delay on my phone here, so I apologize for that. Okay, it just came up. So with that said, the second slide will show using the sextant for a vertical angle. So this is the same as celestial navigation, where you're using the star at altitude for a vertical angle. So you see the baseline there, and you bring the top of the lighthouse to the level of the ocean to match with the baseline of 0 to get your angle, your right angle. Next slide, please. So in this one, you see the sun. So this is away from the coast, and now the same procedure with the sextant will take place. The sun has a GP, just like the lighthouse had a GP, a geographical position over the Earth somewhere. But here you're in open ocean with no other landmarks, so you shoot the altitude of the sun. So let's go to the next picture. And you've got your circle of equal altitude, and here we are at that one part of the circle prior to doing another star to get two circles, but we'll just stick to this one circle. So there it is. There's your baseline. So the GP, the ground position where the sun is directly over, has a baseline that's running all the way to your ship. And then it's got a vertical, which is your plumb, which is your zenith, which is your 90. You can't get around this. It works the same way in the previous pictures next to shore as it does here in the open ocean. And then there's your hypotenuse, which is you holding the sextant. Now go to the next picture. This is the one that matched Brian's plane, except this one's on the sphere. So now try that. Try how the sextant works and transpose how it works on the sphere. Does this look like it's going to work, Nathan?
Again, does it look like it's going to work? No.
Yeah, when you transpose a triangle on the ball. Does this look like it's a real deal here on the sphere? Can you get that right angle when it's up in the air like that? Is the sun pointing directly down or away?
It's the real deal holy sphere.
Okay, so hopefully through images people understand that the sextant doesn't work with the bendy lines that they want it to work with. It's this right angle triangle that's got to be on the flat plane for it to work. Any comments before we move on?
Honestly, that picture is hilarious. Stupid freaking nonsense trying to measure angles on a curved surface. How ridiculous is that? That's made to be ridiculous when you're in 4th grade. When they teach you how to measure an angle with a protractor. Like,
let me let you in on something, Chocolate. I did nothing in Photoshop or anything. This is the way it was presented to prove you're using a sextant.
Where? Where is this from?
I'll send it to you. But the point is, this guy's trying to.
Oh, come on! You're telling me this picture with the one I'm on now, with the boat.
Yes, I didn't do it. Listen, this is why I'm having so much fun with this. I didn't do any of this. This is straight off of the channel.
Okay, I'll
Please
take you
link
at your
that.
word for the now, and you don't tend to make this sort of stuff. Okay, if you're saying this diagram's actually in use, I can't quite believe this. Really?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Well, it's shocking, but they believe it. Okay, go to the next one.
What I'd like to point out just before Nathan moves on to the next one is the base of the triangle there. Now, I'm not pointing out the obvious that it's obviously flat, but the length of that, if you look at where the star, if you come down along the zenith of the star and you carry that line straight on, where does that land on the globe? So the base of that triangle is nowhere near in length of distance to where the zenith of that star would end up. If you bring that zenith line straight down to touch the globe, it's going to be, if you're talking about distances, you're talking about hundreds or thousands, 1,000 miles out. So,
Good segue for my next slide, which you can comment on if Nathan goes on it, because you know what to say on it.
Okay, so this is where Brian, you can't see this image, but the one that's next in the slideshow on Skype, Brian, is you've got 3 ovals, the tops of ovals sat on top of a sphere with triangulation being done, but you wouldn't have radii for any of them.
Yeah, I mean, this means these 3 ovals here are suggesting that radius lines can be curved. So, that's impossible.
Yeah, so unless you assume these are chords slicing the top off all 3 positions, I quite like that'll work, but there we go. They're not. They're just drop circles on top of a, suggested to be spherical surface. Well, that would mean that the line, let's do it from the triangulation point. So from your fix to the GP of the star, this line that I'm drawing with my mouse on screen now, Well, that's supposed to be a radius. It's supposed to give you the radius. That's what the GP is. That's what that line is between the GP and your position. That's what you're measuring. That's what you want to get, right? So you can draw out the circle on your map. But suddenly the radius that you've got is curving upwards to this GP position, or is it curving downwards? Oh, I mean, who knows? Obviously, if you're referencing it from your position, they would assert that it's curving away and falling and dropping away from your position 8 inches per mile squared. Therefore, from here to here has dropped, right, in a curve. Well, that means that it's not a radius anymore. This line doesn't match in terms of your actual use of the triangulation to get your fix, to get your position. You need it to be flat. This is considered an area of equal elevation or area of an equal altitude, i.e. flat, so that the line between these 2 points is straight. The angle that you're acquiring is to the star itself, and then you've got a 90-degree angle, and you can only get the 90-degree angle if this line is straight, but as depicted, it isn't. Just isn't, right, Brian?
Yeah, as they depict it here, it can't be, because what they have to do is they have to use the surface of the Earth for their distances. But what they have to do if they put a circle like this onto a sphere, then that means they have to run, instead of the diameter of that circle being along the surface of the Earth, they have to bring it as a chord line through a section of the globe Earth. But then that diameter of the circle will be less in distance than the arc that resides within the circle, due to it being put on, because the circle is 2D and it's been put onto a three-dimensional globe. So their distances are out. They don't have a straight radius, because if they had to work in reality, they can't, because they can't have a straight radius. So they have to run chords through sections of spheres, and then those chords are less in distance and diameter than the arc that resides above it. There is no way out for them, Nathan.
Yeah, and none of this is applied. So while you might be able to say, well, this is how it would be done if the curved surface was being applied, it's like, but it isn't. What is being done is having a straight line from the fix to the GP with 90 degrees to the star above it. Well, for all of them to work in that manner, they've all got to be parallel, and they've all got to have 90 degrees, and they've all got to have a straight line for a radius. None of that works on a sphere. And this apologetic diagram that suggests it does is just useful for us to show how it doesn't.
Yeah, you can move on to the next one that Adam made for us.
Yep.
Go ahead. Go ahead and comment on that one.
Well, we've labelled this one the diorama melted on a radiator version. So these boxes that are at 90 degrees in these positions aren't 90 degrees anymore. So this is the original diagram. The one on the right is the original. And as you can see, you've got a 90 degree, and all of the lines coming down from each of the stars that are being measured in this example, S1, S2, and S3, all of these lines are parallel with one another, and all of these lines are meeting at 90 degrees to the surface, and all of the lines obviously being 90 degrees parallel lines intersecting gives you 90 degrees at this particular location. Now, where Adam's distorted the image, he's still got it depicted with 90 degrees, but that's what you lose once you curve any of these surfaces away from the position that's being triangulated. So this is representative of the surface curving away exactly as depicted here. So if you imagine that now we're drawing out our position here, that's this position here. Well, unfortunately, you no longer get 90 degrees to the GP of the star, because the star stops coming in parallel, actually parallel, i.e. it's dropping to a zenith position 90 degrees from where it is above, with 90 degrees to your position. You know, those two assumptions must be in effect for this to work, and doesn't in the diagram on the left, because you lose the 90 degrees in every single direction. Great diagram. I love this diagram. Adam's masterful in this.
It's a single circle of equal altitude. So when the sextant is being used, it has to be accompanied with time tied to Greenwich, which is the prime meridian, east or west, to your local time. And you have to have the GP of the 64 navigational stars that they use. So if it's the sun, let's say S1 on top is the sun. So the sun is directly over somewhere in this vast ocean that you're on. And so that would make it the GP. That's that vertical straight line down. Altitude is zenith. Zenith is altitude. It's the highest point in the sky directly above you. So it's a straight line down. Now, O is where you are, somewhere on the circle. And that has to be your baseline. It has to be flat, it has to be straight, it has to create a right angle. That's why you see the square there. It's a symbol for 90 degrees. And then your angle is what you're shooting with your sextant. So then when you get that, you refer to the book, which tells you the address of the star at high noon, wherever it's at, compared to where you're at, because the highest point in the sky usually is high noon, but it could be a few minutes, either way. The whole point is you're somewhere on that circle. Next slide. Now, when you do 3 of them, you have 3 circles of equal altitude. They all cross at one point, and that's your fix. As it says here, by measuring the angles to 3 known stars, the observer knows his location. Now, in order to get 3 GPs that cover distances of thousands and thousands of miles to get your fix, and all of them have to have a right angle, that's flat, that's straight, that's a baseline of 0. And the fix is where they all meet. This is how the sextant works on the flat pane. Always has, always will. But then they make you think it's happening on some sphere. And they're saying we're getting the angle from the center of the Earth. Well, that won't work either, because that's not the way it's done. Second, they say we're getting it this way, but then Nathan and Brian just went over the chord, that arc. If you flatten that arc, it's a different distance. So that doesn't work. Everything they do falls apart because the sextant destroys the globe. It is the year of the sextant, 2021.
Epic. Thank you. Good slideshow, good presentation. And I want to keep hammering this home over and over again, so I'm more than happy to go through this every single day. It's one of those things that people will appreciate the simplicity of it once they understand it, but until you do, it does seem and is complicated.
Well, that's why I keep it to what the sextant is and how could it work and when does it not work, because the minutia of details to get the actual fix, all the different things, it is a very detailed subject. And go ahead and do what I did. Spend 18 months on it. Watch every video, learn it, but then you don't use all the other superfluous or other, machinations of how to do it. Go back to the basic instrument itself. How does it work? When can it not work? Okay, and that's where I form the argument, which is it's an angle measuring instrument. It takes the horizon and an object in the sky, or the horizon or a lighthouse, and you triangulate. And you need a right angle, which means it's got to be flat all the way to the GP of the lighthouse, as well as to the GP of the star or sun that you are sighting. It's that simple. Keep it there. Don't let the ballers take you anywhere else.
Well, it was interesting yesterday because we had a friendly on our own side that was quizzing you on it. And, I didn't have any answers for him, but you knew all of them off the top of your head and could concisely summarise the point that you were being asked about. But whilst reiterating that minutiae isn't necessarily important and why it's not necessarily important and what is important after every challenge. In other words, you didn't just say, well, I don't know. You said, well, I do know. Here's what you're asking. I can't recite anything in particular that he gave you, but I remember commending you for knowing all of those details, regardless of whether or not they were useful to the point. The point being you need 90 degrees to the zenith position of the star, known as its geographical position or ground position. That's this 90-degree box. And for this to work, you've got to have straight lines between you and those stars in terms of their position below them. And that's how you triangulate your position. Doesn't work when you start bending the positions away from you on a spherical surface, and that's all that matters. The rest of the triangulation, dip angle correction, I would agree with your assessment of that. It's worth mentioning, but it's not really the be-all and end-all. And I think a few times it's come up that, if the distance was so far away and you're only on a boat, potentially a few meters above the water, the dip angle correction's not even that important. As soon as you start doing it from an aeroplane, then it's critical. But there's obviously certain parameters that need to be mentioned, certain ones that could come up in discussion that aren't really relevant to the point that's being made. But like I say, you had all bases covered. I'll promote that show, actually. It goes out on my second channel, that's Nathan Oakley, tomorrow evening. So that's Saturday, obviously, watching this live or watching it on an after show, that might not make any sense. But tomorrow, that's Saturday, I believe it's the 28th of August at about 9 p.m. UK time. That show comes out. It's an extended show with a lot of good discussion in it around this subject and challenges coming in regards to how the proof may be valid or may not be valid. And as I say, everything got covered by 10th Man. QE piped up, put his two pennyworth in at various stages as well. As we're plugging this, actually, I might as well plug the other show that's going to come out. The Discussion Chocolate, do you remember, with your co-worker? I trimmed that out. Yeah, okay, chocolate's not available. So, chocolate introduced to the conversation. Go ahead.
Well, hello? I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm right back to discussing scientific theory and theories. So what? I didn't hear. I just heard chocolate. What happened?
I was going to say that the very nice lady that joined the other day, I took that section and trimmed it out. I gave it a title and edited it down, made it a bit more concise, got rid of a few ums and ers and gaps and so on. But it's called Gravity Science Candy. That's the name of the video, and it's got a picture of a unicorn and some floating candy, etc. in the thumbnail. So look out for that. That's going to come out tonight. So again, if you're watching this live, that'll come out at about 9 p.m. UK time on this channel. That's Nathan Oakley 1980. I just thought I'd let you know, Chocolate, because you were involved in the conversation, literally holding the phone under her mouth. I thought you might be interested.
And literally talking to her about it right now, so that's funny. So I'll let her know.
Tell her to tune in. You know, she actually did a very good job of representing what she thought she knew and verbalising that to us so we could concisely pull it apart. And she was very tolerant of it, for the most part, as much as you can expect from professing to be a globe believer, actually anti-flat earther. Very well indeed.
Nathan, let me.
Do you want to tell her? Do you want to tell her one more time yourself? She's right here.
If she's willing, but you have to pepper the mute button in between, because the editing of it took all morning because of all of the background chatter from your phone.
I know. We were in a noisy part of the warehouse at the time. All right, hold on one second.
What were you discussing with her? So back to the same exact thing. What is and isn't theory? So to recap from anybody, you can gather this from the show that comes out at 9 o'clock. But there was hello. Is that Candy again?
Hi.
Hello.
I am not arguing with you again.
Well, we didn't argue last time.
Well, you know, we had a discussion, a nice, frustrating discussion, and I think I walked away with a headache again. So, you know.
Yeah, cognitive pain. Again, very honest of you to express that, because we tell people that that's their pain that they're sharing with us. Now, they often brush it off, but you've literally said you left with a headache. Well, holding two positions simultaneously will do that to you.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. You thought science was a proven theory, therefore science, and when you say science, it means empiricism and proven, right? And we're telling you, no, there isn't any science for it, and here's why: there's no methodology applied, i.e. pseudoscience is the non-application of the method of science, and therefore science is the method application, which you don't have for gravity. Well, to be leaving here going, but I still think gravity's real, is two positions simultaneously.
All right. Well, I'm not gonna debate today, so yeah, I'm gonna give you back to my buddy Chocolate saying in the house.
Chocolate said he was debating with you. That's what he said. But there we go. We'll brush over that.
Yep.
That was Candy, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. You were very polite again, which I really appreciate. If you can hear me. Thank you, Candy. Hey, Adam.
That was good.
Guys.
You got a lot of props in the pre-show, Adam, by the way.
Oh, damn, I'd have missed that. I've had to work today. What have I missed?
Well, you got props for Al Baruni. This is going to get dragged out, Adam, and I'm glad that it's you that brought it to everyone's attention, because you deserve the props for it.
Oh, that's kind. Well, I was only reading yesterday, wasn't it? But it does appear that, yeah, there appears to be another paradoxical error in his calculations. I won't reiterate if you've already covered it pretty soon.
It's just incredibly useful, because only a couple of days ago I was saying that it's unreasonable to ask us to prove our position when the world is obviously, observably, measurably, navigatably flat. Why would you have to start by proving that when it's the standard baseline that you'll have to do your measurements from? And if you say, well, no, I presuppose Earth's a sphere and then I can measure my dip angle measurements, you've only got half the story, right? He's got to get the height of the mountain. And where does he begin? Well, he begins with a flat plane now, doesn't he? Because it's not unreasonable to do so, and he must do so to get the height of the mountain. Al-Biruni, that is.
It is the beauty of what they did, because they make such assertions to build these triangles, and they're making out they're being so clever by using the law of sine instead of basic trigonometry, and understanding that you can't measure the inside the base smack bang in the middle of the mountain. So not just right-angled trig, but use that right-angled trig to then go on to the law of sines. And it's beautiful because you get engrossed in that. And you think, oh, it's fantastically clever, brilliant. That angle matches that, therefore I could do that. If I can measure from here to there, brilliant. And it's not until that I went, but there to there is on a curved Earth surface, which destroys every bit of logic you've used prior to allow you to make the assumptions, because triangles have straight sides, not bendy sides. So it just destroys every bit that you can then derive from that, because his basic premise is the Earth is flat to be able to calculate the height of the mountain.
Indeed, and the other person who got props out along with Brian for a different subject was Bev. You know, these geometric principles are what Bev laughs in the face of Globers on a daily basis with. You know, it just tells them what the principles are, and it's like, those principles hold true, Earth's flat. Now, he doesn't say it in those terms because he doesn't even profess to be a flat earther. But by the same token, he recognises the obvious and observable flat plane that we dwell atop. That goes without saying. He just doesn't want to, I assume, I speak on his behalf, I do apologise, Bev, that he doesn't want to be associated with all the nonsense and maps and all the other things that have been pigeonholed into that category, flat earth. He doesn't want to be one of them, neither do I, to be perfectly ruthless.
That's a very fair position. I mean, you know, and anyone who would challenge that that's a very fair position, okay, fine. Don't add the caveat whenever you tell somebody that you're a flat earther then. Just let them think whatever they want whenever you say, I'm a flat earther.
Nathan, I put that link to the video and I timestamped the mark. It's a very short video anyway. I think it's just under 5 minutes. But you could scroll through from the beginning up to that mark, and you could see I didn't do anything. I just went to it, and he's the one that put that image.
Okay, I'll scroll through to it. You say 116, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's have a look. So far, so good. These are the same exact slides. It's not looking good. Oh, dear. Really? Oh, dear. How do you use a sextant to measure celestial altitudes of heavenly bodies? Not like this. Oh, dear. Okay, well, thank you for proving it. I mean, I you know, 90% didn't I disbelieved it, not you. Do you know what I mean?
No, it's shocking because he does a good job at the beginning and shows how a sextant can only work. And it shows it on the flat surface. And then he shows that image, which is what they all do.
Looks like he's given a good description of how the sextant works. He's got a sextant. He's showing how it works. He's showing how he measures the angle.
Yeah, that's a different one. That's a different guy. Different. He's got a good series on it too.
You know what? You know what I think? The same thing I think about people in academia or people with these scientific publications, you know, that say certain things that don't necessarily say, hey, I'm a flat earther, just like we were discussing with Bev. I think that this guy is showing this on purpose. Like he knows, I feel like he knows how ridiculous that is. I can't see it any other way. I'm sorry.
That was Mystic Meg, our divining people's thoughts correspondent. Thank you very much, Meg.
You'd be surprised, Eli. They are begging the question so much that they have this foldable tangent plane. And as long as they could take it with them, Really, it's comical. So you got to take a flat Earth with you wherever you want to get a real measurement, and then you got to then say you got it off a curved surface when you already know you can't get an angle from a curve. That's the level of how much it's got power over them. The sphere image.
Julio. So, as this guy's been featured, let's share his video. His channel name is Practical Navigator. So I'll stick this in the live stream chat also.
No, that's a different guy. You clicked on another link there. The one I sent you is a different one.
Well, this is the link. At the right timestamp.
Hang on.
Ah, well, it's been on my screen. It's the exact video that I've shown, so he's getting the credit. There's his link. Go and subscribe if you choose to. He's already got 22,000 subscribers. I'm sure he'd appreciate like I do. He's got a similar number to me. Go and subscribe to him. I bet he'd be really grateful.
Oh, he's good. That guy's good, but that's a different guy. I think you went and clicked on another recommended link or something. The guy that I sent you is called Steering Mariners. He's got 24,005 subscribers. And he's an expert in this. He's really good. He does a lot of good stuff.
I'll shout out to Steering Mariners also.
Yeah, and he covers all other topics. Just go scroll through his videos. He covers everything with navigation, from the weight of ships to just to pass tests, how to plot, how to do everything. You know, that's why the other day when the guy asked the question, when you watch enough of these videos, if you want to get detailed, all the guys say, then you got to stick to the methodology and go through all the little gyrations, and you'll be a mile or so off of your target. But most of us don't do that. We just do it the easy way, and we're 10 to 20 miles off, and that's good enough for us. We don't want to go through all that stuff to make it perfect. So what do they minus? Well, they don't even do dip, which is height above the sea level. They don't do a lot of things just to get nearby. That's how good the Sextant is. But if you want to be perfect, you got to go through each of these things. The sidereal hour angle, the Greenwich hour angle, the local hour angle. You got, instead of all these different things, when the most people just use it the plain and simple way. I sent a video to Brian's Logic where the guy shows how to do it quick, avoiding all the math, just having time and the angle, and that's all he does. And he says, I've sailed across the ocean just like this, and I've been very close to my targets. But if I need to be precise, I have to go through the routine. So that's why you don't need to get lost into that. It works clumsily well, and it works perfectly when you go through the steps. But guess what? You need a flat baseline, or you can't triangulate. You need that right angle. So you're the Sextant.
Kudos to 10th Man, whose hard work is really appreciated. In addition, it's been a sheer pleasure watching the entire panel members blossom into very knowledgeable globe destroyers, says Retro Bill with a $50 super chat. Thank you very much. Just before you were about to send that super chat, I was thinking I must figure a way of thanking all the people who smashed the PayPal link, because they pretty much keep the lights on for the show in terms of my revenue income. It's very directly proportional to the support I get. I was thinking, how can I phrase it? Maybe call them my sponsors or something like that. And then a $50 super chat comes in. So thank you very much indeed, Retro Bill. But I will do that as well, which is to say all the people who smashed the PayPal link, most of the time because they don't want to be mentioned. So I'm not going to specifically mention anybody, but I really, really appreciate your support. I very rarely mention it on a live stream, but I just thought I'd throw that in here. As I am very, very grateful to all the people who do support the show. And there's a few trolls in there going, low numbers today, because the show's had, at one point, less than 100 people watching. And it's like, yeah, unfortunately, it's down to the people who share the show. They're the people who keep the lights on in metaphorical terms, in terms of the people watching. And that is down literally only to the people who share. And as opposed to the figurative, the actual lights are kept done by the people who support me via things like PayPal. So thank you very much. You know who you are. Link below if you did want to support me by PayPal, by the way. Anyway, enough of the plugs for the people who support the show.
I would state that the horizon dip correction is extremely important. Like, there might be other steps that you might look past, but to me that would be extremely important, because that couple of meters, you can look maybe past some other steps, but that couple of meters, that couple of feet, could be the difference between 10, 15 miles of accuracy.
That's what he said.
Why not do it? Yeah.
Well, that's what he said.
Why not do it?
Well, that's what he's just said. He's just said, and I said this in the pre-show before you got here, Brian. You know, the dip angle isn't that critical if you're on a boat. It is if you're in a bloody aeroplane, because then you're going to massively skew the angle, right?
Well, I would consider critical on a boat too. If you want any kind of accuracy, I would consider it critical on a boat.
Yeah,
but that would be me. If that's what I would do, I would consider it critical on a boat. Okay,
I get you, but what Tenth has just said is, in many examples that he's got from cited sources that he hasn't got to give me this second, he's saying they would say, no, it's not that critical, because if you just take it without minusing off, say, 10 metres of the boat to the surface below, and then you just measure the angle, obviously that's going to throw the star slightly further out and increase the radius of the circle that you're measuring, because you've got that extra bit of angle that isn't really there, and then you're taking 90 degrees from that. So it's actually slightly wrong because you've got a wider circle. Yeah. And the guys who do it say, yeah, when you do it that way, you're off by, you said 15 miles, they said 20, even more. But they're like, but that doesn't matter, right? Once you've roughly got your position to within 20 miles, that's good enough, and off you go.
Okay, but as an argument, I would
good
say...
enough sort of thing.
The point is, you don't need to do the dip, and in many cases, they don't use the dip. But like I said to 10th, it's worth mentioning in the presentations, because it might just get bought up by your opponent, and if you haven't got a clue what it is, then you could get into trouble if they were sneaky and slippery enough. So it's worth mentioning, but by the same token, there's plenty of mariners who just don't do it.
Okay, from a globe believer's point of view, what I would now say is that, well, it doesn't matter the distances then. So the argument you're making concerning the diameter of the circle being less than the arc doesn't matter, because it all doesn't matter. See, I would never do that.
No.
The horizon dip correction.
No, that's a different subject.
It's a different.
No, hang on. Yeah, you're missing the point. You're giving the globers a little.
Hold on, Brian. Brian, are we talking about the same dip? They've got a dip from 90 degrees in, like with Alberuni, right, to the horizon dip. How much it's dropped when assumed to be a physical horizon. The dip we're talking about is just the measurement of your position above the sea. You're starting.
I know that, Nathan. Yeah, I know that. I was trying to lead you down the right path to keep the horizon dip correction as part of our argument, and don't sway away from there. Because any loose, well, that's not. I'm sorry, but that's not what you're after saying on this show.
No. Let me explain. please. I always explain dip the proper way, because it's just height above sea level. That's all dip is. Okay.
Yeah, but you're saying it doesn't really. Hang on.
No, I'm saying.
Hang on. All right.
I'm saying that in 18 months of watching videos of people doing this, if you want to do it clumsily, not within a mile, but off by 20, they say they don't even do it. That's all. That doesn't mean it's the way to do it. It's just these people don't want to go through the sheet and all the things and minus this, plus that, do this, do that. They don't want to do all that. They just want to do this and that and get within 20 miles, because their radar is going to pick up land anyway when they're within 20 miles, and they could see it on a good day. That's the clumsy way of using the sextant, not the proper way. The proper way is to take dip. The proper way is to go through each of those things. That's all I said.
Okay, fine. Yeah, Brian. Okay, just let Brian give his concerns. Fine. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Nathan. We should always, what's the word I'm looking for? Put emphasis on the dip angle, the horizon dip correction having to be done. Because if I was a globe believer, I would be using this kind of, the kind of talk that has gone on today as like, well, if it doesn't matter if you're out a bit, you might just only be out a bit, only a little bit sure if the arc is more than the chord. So we can do it on the globe, so we're on the globe. That's where I would go.
I see. Okay. I understand your point. Let me reiterate it on your behalf then. So you're saying, based on the fact that in part of Brian's presentation, let's just go back to the slide that was used. So in this depiction of a globe, and they're saying, yeah, of course, well, Brian's argument is to say that from the centre, i.e. the GP of the star, to your fix, if it's on a sphere, is curved, right? What 10th Man is saying is, if from this position you're measuring out to the horizon to get 90 degrees, yeah, let's say the horizon sits in this square that's representing where your fix is. Let's say that's the horizon that you originally take, and you don't measure dip to get that degree of accuracy. Brian's argument is to say that because the horizon, which is approximately here where this box is from the position that you're measuring, if you don't take off dip, they would just say, well, if you can say that this distance to horizon, it doesn't matter about a few feet or a few meters above the boat, minusing it off, then it doesn't matter about this entire arc to the GP of the star. What's the difference, would be their argument. Now, my response, Brian, would be to say, well, it's a massive difference, because suddenly you've got an arc to the GP, which is much further than the horizon. Much, much, much further. Therefore, the arc that we're talking about there isn't even the arc that we're describing anyway, because we're getting 0 from the horizon, not from the GP. Now, they are one and the same thing once you've minus dip correction off. So I'm going to change my tone and actually side with Brian and go, he's right. The accuracy increases when you increase the dip, or include the dip, because you've got 90 degrees, and that's how the principle works. So the closer you get to that principle of it being flat, the more accurate it gets. And I think that's Brian's point of emphasis. Right, Brian?
Yeah, I don't care what people flimsily do on boats if they don't have to do the dip correction, or if they're 4 foot or 5 foot above the water. Who cares if they don't do it? Grand. But our argument is that it's a 90-degree angle. And when we're saying the dip angle correction is not that important because some random mariner say it's not important, and we're not talking about naval people or people who are on commercial fishing or commercial shipping, we're talking about people who are off out in the yacht that are 30 miles away from land. May not be too important to them. They're only messing around. It's easy to find land. They're only 30 miles away. But if any of the mariners I've listened to, they all state the dip angle correction has to be done. And that is our argument, that it creates 90 degrees.
But I agree. And I'm just going to explain it just for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, because I've got a triangle on screen that I can explain what dip angle correction is. Now, this R value that we've got here is a straight line from the centre of the circle that represents a flat, two-dimensional circle that is equal in elevation in all directions. And below it is the position where you've got the star. That's what you're measuring when you are at this position O. Now, if you are at this position O, the dip angle correction, and I'm going to exaggerate this, is to say that the surface that you're measuring isn't necessarily where you're taking the measurement from. You could be here, and we're going to say that this position here above the O is now going to be where we measure our angle to the star. Now that slightly alters the angle to the star and stops you having 90 degrees because you've then got a downward angle. Yeah. So the dip angle correction is to then take that and minus the height that you are above the ground that you're measuring. So the dip correction is a sort of weird term to use for this because it's a height adjustment. All you're doing is saying, I'm on a boat that is X amount of height above the sea. And the sea is what I am going to be measuring as a flat plane to the GP of the star at 90 degrees. Well, if I'm above that flat plane that meets 90 degrees at the GP of the star, and I start measuring the angle to the star from above that flat surface, then it changes the angle. So, to get it correct, I have to minus off my height to take my eye where I measure it to the ground. Now, further to that, just for 10th man's point to be illustrated, because it doesn't throw you off that much, you can still do it without minusing off your height. Now, my argument to this originally was to say if you're in an aeroplane and you try and do this, then it throws it off massively, whereas if you're a few metres above the sea, it doesn't throw it off so much that you need to worry about it, and that's 10th man's point. But Brian's saying, no, the whole point and proof is that for the geometry to work, it's a flat line to get 90 degrees. Well, as soon as you fail to minus your height above the flat plane, you're not getting 90 degrees. Therefore, as a geometric claim, it's unreasonable to start saying, don't worry about dip. It's like, well, then you're bastardising the geometry that you're utilising to make your proof make sense. That's Brian's point, and I agree with him.
How you summarize that, Nathan? Because at the end there, I came around. Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, but just let's not forget, these are not professional shipping captains or Navy officers. They always go through.
No, that's not what it's. Brian's argument isn't about how the application works. It's about how the geometry works, and the geometry proves it's a flat surface. Now, if you bastardize the geometry because you're not doing it because you're not professional, that's got nothing to do with how the geometry in the first instance works, and that's the seat, that's the root of our proof in this regard. And Brian's saying, don't deviate from the actual proof, even by a couple of degrees, because then they'll just take that and massage in their own curve Earth to the GP and all the rest of it. Just stick to what it is. It's a flat bottom triangle.
Yeah. So then boards can claim that it does still work on a sphere, right?
No. Why are you missing it? It's an angle.
No, hey, you're missing my point. I'm sorry.
I'm not missing your point. Let me get. I'm the reporter who's telling you what I heard them saying. You're shooting me. What's your problem here?
He's not arguing with the mariners. He's arguing with the application of the geometry by example when using the mariners, who just use a loose version of it because it's not too concerning to them that if you're not minusing off your height above sea level, you're not getting a perfectly straight flat line. And our argument is that it's a perfectly straight flat line. Therefore, we better include that in our argument, is Brian's point.
All right. When I have the time in the after show, I will go through what I'm saying. I'm just reporting what they say. But the sextant cannot be something that it's not. It's an angle measuring device. And so if you're doing it clumsily, it's not going to be precise, but you're off 20 miles or something. That's all these people are saying. They're not saying it doesn't measure a 90-degree angle or it can work on a curved surface. They're not saying that.
Perfect. We will go through it in the after show. But with that, I'll say if you are watching this live on it, then this is where we bid you farewell, unfortunately, because there is going to be an after show to follow. But a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you. Smash the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, hit the PayPal link, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!